Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Post-Match Live. My name is David. This is We Ain't Got No History. We just got done watching Chelsea lose to West Ham 1-0. Understandably, considering it's 6:49 on the West Coast here in the USA, this is about the earliest that our weekend has been ruined in quite some time. So that's something to look forward to. We'll be here for a little while to talk about possibly what went wrong for Chelsea today, what didn't go right. That's basically the same thing, but that's kind of like what Chelsea did today. Tried the same thing over and over and over without any actual reward for their half-hearted effort. We'll call it half-hearted because it certainly was not something to be proud of there for 90 minutes. Get Loftus-Cheek back, says Rob Davis. Certainly somebody who can do give us a bit of rotation there for Bakayoko, who's had a terrible few weeks, and today was not something for him to be proud of once again. Same thing could be said for Morata, who missed Chelsea's best opportunity when it looked like easier to score. This was about the final 10 minutes, and Hazard compounded that by missing another good chance just a couple minutes later. Morata has something like 3 goals in 14 games now, which is not necessarily a good return, especially considering the good start that he had to the year and to his Chelsea career. And unfortunately, we played Batshuayi in midweek in the development squad game, so he wasn't necessarily ready to play. And certainly Conte's changes, which he made super early, were to get all the usual wingers, Pedro and Willian, and then Moses, who was also rested, which was, in hindsight, a bit of a mistake. But, we do have to rotate at some point, and West Ham, at least before this game, had gone 8 games without a win, and they were 19th in the league. So if you're keeping track, Chelsea have now lost to the bottom of the table, Crystal Palace, and they've lost to 19th in the league, West Ham United, both away. So maybe whoever is in 18th next time. It's maybe we just stick to playing non-relegation threatened teams. Could have won the game or at least draw the game, says Kelvin. Certainly, if you look at the stats, we've had 19 shots, which on most days, just without looking at the quality of chances, 19 shots should be good enough to beat any team, really. But then when you put only 2 shots on target and not really create any great chances other than the one Morata chance and the Hazard chance, kind of, but that was a little tougher. You would expect them to put that ball at least on frame, and neither of those didn't even require a save from Adrian. So, yeah, regardless of how well you or how badly you play elsewhere, first thing you have to do is get your shots on target and finish your chances. That's why we're playing. That's why we're paying Morata all those millions to not miss chances like that one chance. Obviously, in a more ideal situation, we'd create a few more opportunities than the one or the 2 chances. But the way the game developed, with West Ham getting an early goal and then being able to sit back and defend, which they already showed last weekend that they could do pretty well under Moyes, since they kept Manchester City scoreless for a half before conceding twice in the second half to lose that game. After scoring on Chelsea in the 6th minute, their task was fairly simple. I mean, it's not, we probably shouldn't say easy, but play 10 men behind the ball, pack the box, pack the area. Chelsea's wingbacks were not necessarily as good as we would have expected them to be, and the wingbacks are key to any 3-man defensive system. Shout out to Austin Nans. How's it going? It's been a while. You should have shown up in one of those happier post-match videos. But when the wingbacks have a day off, in a system that relies heavily on wingbacks not having a day off, you're always going to struggle. So all of Chelsea's invention was down the middle, which is where 10 of West Ham's players were, and understandably, there was nothing much we could create. The fact that we still had 19 shots is probably pretty okay, but I doubt that they were very good shots at all. Why do we always start on the back foot? Yeah, it's been it's 3 straight games now that Chelsea have conceded the first goal in the game, and 4 out of 5 that we've been scored on first. Just like the Newcastle game last weekend, which was another early kickoff, 12:30 local time. Chelsea started slow. The opponents did not. They got the first goal against Newcastle. We could fight back. Against West Ham, we couldn't. We also conceded first goals against Atletico and Liverpool. Those were slightly later conceded goals, and in those games, we only managed to draw back or claw back to draw. This is the first time that we didn't even manage to do that, and it's the first loss for Chelsea since losing to aforementioned bottom of the table Crystal Palace, who are still bottom of the table. So maybe it's just something about these away games against the easier teams. You know, there's certainly plenty of blame to go around. We could blame the coach for not motivating the players well enough. We could blame the players for not getting up for the game. We could certainly for West Ham, this was a rivalry and a big derby game, so they certainly look motivated. You would think after 8 games winless with, a rather uninspiring coach like David Moyes, they wouldn't. But that's where the early goal was key for them. Once they scored that goal, you could see how much more motivated, how much more willing they were to run and chase and be stronger in all the 50-50s, etc., etc. Do I play Xbox? No, sorry, don't play any video game consoles. Robin says, "You're right, the weekend is ruined." It is. We were terrible, kind of saw it coming. Well, I mean, we always saw, right? We always expect the worst, kind of. But it's one of those obvious trap games where you go, Chelsea had been playing really well, and even the games we hadn't won, like the Liverpool game or even the Atletico game, we created really good chances. We just failed to finish them, and then had a couple moments of panic at the back. Today, we had the couple moments of panic at the back, and then we couldn't even do the usual, create some good opportunities up top. It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate way to begin the weekend. Let's run through the lineups, I suppose. Certainly not much fault to be found with the way Chelsea lined up. The 3-5-2 is now our default go-to formation, and it's been working pretty well. Conte made one change from the game on Tuesday, which was to rest Moses, which is fine since Moses is still coming back from injury. So Zappacosta was moved back to right wing back, Alonso left wing back, midfield 3 of Fabregas, Conte, and Bakayoko. There's probably a decent chance that Bakayoko doesn't start this game, but Drinkwater had fallen ill during the week. Some sort of fever is what I read. And so he was in no shape to play this game or even be in the squad, and his place on the bench was taken by young Ampadu. We had the back 3, the standard back 3 of Cahill, Christensen, and Azpilicueta, Courtois in goal, and Morata and Hazard up top. I mean, if you were picking a first choice Chelsea lineup, that's basically it, minus Zappacosta for Moses, in my opinion. If anything, you look at that lineup and think that's a bit of an overkill for a 19th place team in the Premier League. But of course, given that it's a rivalry game and it's a big game for West Ham, no easy games in the Premier League, as the cliche goes, and just how well West Ham played for half last week, it's understandable that we would keep the first team players out there. We do have another game on Tuesday, so probably we'll get some rotation there. Hopefully see even Batshuayi get a start after he's worked his way back to full fitness. So that was Chelsea 3-5-2. For West Ham, they went with their newest, newly utilized 3-4-3, which they kind of used last time too, with Adrian in goal over Joe Hart. Back three of Cresswell, Ogbonna, and Winston Reid. Winston Reid being back was a big key for them. He had been an injury dot before the game. So that's unfortunate for us. Cresswell had a pretty good game. Not as good of a game as left wing back Masuaku, who for the first half played kind of like Roberto Carlos, or we allowed him to play like Roberto Carlos, more to the point. So good job there for old Zappacosta. Midfielders of Noble and Pedro Obiang. Obiang managed to get away with at least 3 yellow card fouls, 2 of those within the first 55 minutes. So there's that. Zabaleta playing right wing back. Zabaleta is like 65 years old, but today he played like he was only 31 or 32 or however old he is. And he kept our left side pretty well contained, which was unfortunate for us. Their front three of Arnautovic, Antonio, and Lanzini contained 0 recognized strikers, just about 0 goals. And sure enough, Arnautovic scored for his first West Ham goal since signing for big money in the summer. So yeah, good for us there. Thanks, Marco Arnautovic. Cresswell was outstanding as center backs as James. And I tend to agree. I think Cresswell is one of those guys who is always struck me as possibly a good signing for Chelsea. Not only because he's homegrown, he plays a position of need, but apparently he can also play center back, which is new. I thought he was only a left back. So yeah, unfortunately for us to find out in such a circumstance. Zabaleta was better than that Italian bloke and Moses. Yeah, surprisingly, old Zabaleta. Maybe he was remembering that one time that Hazard made a fool of him and decided to step it up today. Unfortunately, it's kind of all of West Ham's players stepped it up, and none of Chelsea's players decided to step up. Even Christensen took a couple bad steps. The midfielders, we had 3 midfielders. They had 2, if we're looking at it in that sort of way. And we still allowed Lanzini and Arnautovic to play through 4 or 5 defenders and do their 1-2s. Cresswell would be wasted at Chelsea. He'd never play. That's possibly true, but we do need a left back in January, so we need to do something. I'm not saying Cresswell is the guy we're gonna go after, but we could have been a decent signing some time ago. Anywho, that's just always reminds me of Cresswell. It's one of those guys we supposedly looked at back in the day, and then nothing came of it. Morata goes down way too easily, says Bildad. Can bet on him miss a good chance if the ball falls at his feet. Yeah, certainly. The 2 things that we tend to knock Morata for were great evidence today. His early shout for the penalty kick. On replay, you can see that Reid was kind of holding his shirt. There's always contact. And I mean, if you go by the letter of the law, sure, it's a penalty. But the hold was well out of sight of the referee since it was in front of Reid, so you can understand why the referee didn't call it. And then the way Morata went down looked very easy on live time, as a certain commentator likes to say. And it was just an awkward fall, not a natural looking. Oh my God, I got pulled back. It was, oh my God, I get pulled back. I'm still up. Why am I still up? I'm gonna go fall to the ground. We used to see old Ivanovic go down very theatrically and very awkwardly like that, and few people ever fell for it. And unfortunately, if Morata is going to continue to go down easy, as they say in England. He needs to learn to fall a little better. Maybe we'll get old Didier back and show and teach him a couple lessons, because those calls, maybe you'll get him in Spain or Italy, but I don't know. You're not gonna get him very often in England. Yeah, as Neil says, in Spain he would get that. In Spain, the Premier League, you get told to get up and get on with it, especially when Anthony Taylor is your referee, and Taylor has a reputation for letting a lot of stuff go, and keeping his yellow cards until late in the game, which he did once again today, eventually carding about half the West Ham team, but not what was it, the first yellow. There was a yellow in the 7th minute, which was Arnautovic was celebrating, but then Taylor didn't give another yellow to West Ham until the hour mark, which was for time wasting, which once again West Ham did quite well, which is another team doing a ton of time wasting against us. But there are cards in the 58, 67, 68, 70, 87 minute marks. So there you go. That's it's classic Taylor refereeing. And the problem also, another one, the kind of knock-on effect with Morata going down easy, is once you do that in a game, you set the narrative for the referee that, oh, you're going down easily. So now every time you even do get fouled, you're a lot less likely to get that call. And unfortunately, we've seen this happen to Morata a few times. He's too soft to play up front for Chelsea, says Harry. And certainly on days like this, it's that lends weight to that argument. We've seen Morata stay up and play strong, and this has been a narrative for him, or a thing for him ever since he joined. And he looked weak in the first couple of games. Then he gotten stronger, and I'm not sure it was the injury or maybe just tired, but it certainly seems to be back in more of an effect over the last couple of games. Yeah, as Neil says, Morata's making the same mistakes Drogba did when he first signed. Drogba kicked on when he worked out. You don't get those in the Premier League. Yeah, exactly. So, Morata's been here for a few months. Obviously, it's far too early to render any sort of verdict on him. Same goes for Bakayoko, before you ask. But there's clear ways that his game needs to improve at Chelsea, just like there were clear ways after Drogba needed to improve after his first couple seasons, which we remember were not necessarily all world conquering as he would later become. In fact, if you look at Drogba's years, he basically had 2 years at Chelsea where he was just practically unplayable and scoring every game. And then in other seasons, he would affect the game in other ways, not necessarily just through goals. So, goals are nice. There are other ways you can contribute. Unfortunately, Morata did neither today, and we needed somebody. When a team defends deep like that, 10 men behind the ball, whatever, pack the box with 6-7 players, you need a strong striker up front. And maybe you could have given Batshuayi a chance as well. He certainly bulked up over the last 18 months, and has had moments when he's shown to be able to step up to defenders like that. If Hazard doesn't click, we always struggle, says John. That certainly is the case. Unfortunately, Hazard was kept pretty quiet today. There was that one chance that he missed, but there was not much room for him to create. He didn't seem to drop deep very often either, so I'm not sure if that was a tactical decision or maybe just something I missed, or if it's just Hazard has been tired from all the games that he's been kicking that he's played. It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate. It's been a while since Chelsea had been shut out. Obviously Roma kept us without a goal, but I'm trying to think. When was the last time Chelsea failed to score in a league game? Against City, I guess. Yeah, City at home was the last time we failed to score in a league game. So it's been a while. There's a stat going around that Chelsea have actually lost 5 of 9 London derbies under Antonio Conte, which is a bit surprising. We're usually pretty well up for those games. I'm not so sure that's necessarily something we should read into, but small sample sizes and all that. Neil says the good news: these are parts of their game that can be improved. The talent is there, just the application needs to work. For the Premier League, Bakayoko and Morata need a bit of time to adjust. I think we've certainly seen that their physicality is in the right place if channeled properly. I mean, Bakayoko can be a force in midfield. He's tall and strong, big, wins headers. Especially the way the modern game's going, that's prototypical midfield controller. When he turns not 22 or 23 or however old he is, he certainly should be given a bit of time, but he also should be not played every game. But again, we didn't really have much of a chance or much of an option from the beginning. He was taken off at halftime, which is a pretty clear indication that he was not very good. Conte doesn't really make early changes, but today we used all 3 of our changes before the 65th minute, and Conte usually makes his first substitution in like the 75th minute. So he was certainly pressing all the panic buttons and trying to get something to work. We started in the 3-5-2. Then at halftime, Pedro came on for Bakayoko. And this move we've seen a couple times before, where Pedro plays the third midfielder, kind of the shuttling midfielder from the attacking midfield line up into the box. Not really as a wide player. Then Moses came on for Alonso in the 55th minute. Alonso had got himself booked in the 18th minute, so I'm sure that kind of played a part in that. There was an instance in the first half where I kind of thought that Alonso was going to collect this second yellow. But fortunately, it was Anthony Taylor, and he didn't get booked from the sliding tackle from behind that took out whoever it was for West Ham. So that was a bit of a close call. So I think that played a big part in Alonso getting withdrawn in 55 minutes. Probably would have seen Zappacosta leave and just make a like-for-like sub with Moses. Moses came on in the 55th, and Zappacosta did follow 10 minutes later, and Willian came on. So that was Pedro, Moses, and Willian put on. Those are attacking options off the bench. Maybe you look at Batshuayi, but you can only have 3 subs. And when Willian came on for the last 26, 27 minutes was stoppage time, so about 30 minutes, we switched finally to a 3-4-3 with Conte and Fabregas in the midfield, Moses as right wing back, Pedro as left wing back, and then the front 3 of Hazard, Morata, and Willian. But as far as the shape of the game, nothing really changed. Chelsea huffed and puffed. West Ham stayed strong, packed the box. We took a couple shots, missed a couple of good chances, and that was that. It's pretty classic. I mean, West Ham will be given a ton of credit, of course. Oh, they defended well. David Moyes finally gets him a win. It's not like he did anything extraordinarily amazing. He set his team up to defend deep, defend with 10 men, leave Antonio up, sometimes Arnautovic, and that was their striker. Or there was their counters. It's not like they did anything through the counters. I mean, Cahill and Christensen dealt fairly well with Antonio's pace and power. They dealt less well with Arnautovic's pace and power and skill, unfortunately. Somebody said that they can't help but feel that De Gea would have saved the goal from Arnautovic. And I mean, maybe, but I think it would have required a pretty big guess from the goalkeeper. Arnautovic's shot was screened a little bit by Azpilicueta, and he bent it around both Azpilicueta and Courtois. It's one of those goals where you kind of just tip your cap to the striker and say, well, if you pull off that finish, that's your goal. You can't cover 100% of the goal as a goalkeeper. You cover 90-some%, and he hit a spot. We certainly had hoped when Hazard got in a similar shooting position that he would hit a spot, but he put his shot high and wide of the top corner. And there's the difference. Sometimes you score your first goal of the season, like Arnautovic, and sometimes you miss your however many 10th goal of the season. Then Hazard, you would have thought he would have scored. It's one of those. Who knows? Shooting sometimes, finishing sometimes is a game of luck. But it's also very much a game of skill. So you would expect Hazard to at least hit the target, make the goalkeeper make a save. Alas. Started losing to the backmarkers against his Tendai, Crystal Palace, now West Ham. Indeed, 20th and 19th place. I don't know who's in 18th, but let's hope we don't have to play them anytime soon. Overconfidence, maybe. I mean, it could be. I know for Crystal Palace, that was surprising just because we had come out of a 2-week international break then, so we figured we were rested and ready to go, and everybody just kind of was listless and not ready to go. And then today, it was another early kickoff. Was Crystal Palace an early kickoff? Let's check. Crystal Palace was not an early kickoff. Crystal Palace was a standard 3 p.m., so I'm not sure. It's today was I don't know. We even had an extra day of rest from Atletico since that was on a Tuesday. We had 3 full days off. Normally these days you only get 2. So I don't know. I don't know if it's overconfidence. I think it's more just who knows. I didn't really see any overconfident sort of attitudes from the players. I saw just basically them not being up for the game. I don't know is that the same thing? I don't know. I'm not one to psychoanalyze the players, but they're simply not good enough. Whether that was a mental thing, whether that was a physical thing. They're not. I think for a man to man, they were not up for this game. They were simply physically, mentally, technically. So many turnovers. Once again, misplaced passes. Players not being where they need to be or where their teammates would expect them to be. A couple times, Morata, for example, would hold up the ball and do his usual pass out wide, and like Zappacosta would be nowhere to be found. He would try to lay the ball off. Bakayoko or Fabregas or whoever needed to be there was nowhere to be found. Certainly, Hazard was not as influential as one would expect him to be. Earlier this week, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was the Ballon d'Or results were announced for 2017 with Cristiano Ronaldo winning again, and Hazard finishing 19th out of the 30 players shortlisted, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Hazard finished 19th. He's certainly a lot better." Well, maybe he just decided to show us why he was only 19th, because that was not a performance fit for anywhere near top 5, top 10 Ballon d'Or. Not that we should be looking at Ballon d'Or as like any sort of actual indication of player talent, but it's it's more of a popularity contest. But he's not gonna rise very high in the rankings with performances like this. That's not saying that these are the sort of performances he's been putting in. After all, he had been our man of the match for 2 straight games. This was his 15th start of the season after his broken ankle in the summer, so he's a little behind in terms of starts. But in the previous 14 starts in our player ratings, he was the man of the match 7 times. So I mean, he's been having a good season, but today less so, less so. But again, same thing goes for the rest of the team. I can't imagine impossible games against Barcelona or PSG. Well, the good thing is, if we play Barcelona or PSG in the next round, we will be more in the West Ham role, where nobody's giving us a chance. And oftentimes, it's a lot easier to play without expectations. You literally have nothing to lose. You might grab an early goal, like West Ham today, and then you sit back and defend, and sometimes we can defend. Not these days. These days we seem to be conceding some silly goals. Was not too happy with that goal we conceded, because we seemed to let Lanzini run between the lines. He was being tracked by Bakayoko for a while, and then Bakayoko just kind of like let him go. Conte didn't react quick enough. Arnautovic played the 1-2 and got behind Christensen, who didn't turn quick enough, and then Azpilicueta seemed to be a step too far from Christensen, a step right up to Arnautovic, which allowed Arnautovic a step to control the ball, shift to his left, and Azpilicueta couldn't make the block. So, as most goals, there are multiple things that go wrong, systematic, collective errors, whatever. If you want to blame Courtois for not making the save, it's also valid. There are things those are things that we need to work on. I'm not sure how we can improve our finishing woes, but they are starting to be a little glaring. Maybe it'll require Morata to take a little breather and get him to refocus. There's always a worry with Morata that he's such a if you read his interviews, he's so aware of the expectations and just what it means when he does score and when he doesn't score. He's almost a little too intelligent, too smart for this. It reminds me a little bit actually of Ashley Cole. Ashley Cole always had very, very insightful interviews when he was allowed to speak. Very aware of how actions on the pitch are perceived and what effect they have. But the problem with Morata is that there's always a feeling that he just thinks too much about these things. Like you just want him to be kind of a dumb force out there and get the ball, hit the ball, and score the goal, instead of trying to analyze what all this is going to mean in the future for his future, how he will be perceived by the fans. Maybe all players are like this and they don't talk about it, but Morata certainly has talked many times about this already, both at Chelsea and before at like Juventus and Real Madrid. So when he goes on streaks such as right now, where he has 3 goals in 14 games, when he misses an early goal, there's always it's always a chance he goes a bit too much like old Torres and starts becoming a head case. So hopefully that's not a concern, and I'm just overblowing this. But I think Morata definitely needs a breather. And against Huddersfield on Tuesday, I'd like to see Batshuayi out there. He might not be better. He might not score any goals, but if we have backups, we need to use them. And certainly now, regardless of what happens tomorrow between City and United, we might not admit it in public, but pretty sure the title is not ours to win or even really challenge for. It would require a pretty epic collapse from Manchester City to get anywhere near the title. But the top 4 is very much in play, and we're still in an advantageous position. I mean, we had a 3-point lead over Liverpool in 3rd place. So we were in 3rd, Liverpool in 4th, and we were 3 points behind United, who were in 2nd. If United win tomorrow, then it's basically a 2-horse title race between them and City. If City win tomorrow, we might as well just give them the title, I think. I mean, that's a pretty unassailable lead. It's happened before, but we'll just go with the statistics. So the point is, we can't really get down too much on stupid losses like this. There is a ton to play for. We need to have top 4 solidified and wrapped up. There's League Cup coming up in about 10 days against Bournemouth. That's the quarterfinal. There's FA Cup coming up next month. And we've been drawn away to Norwich City. So that's a decent enough draw for lower rotation. And then on Monday, we have the draw for the Champions League round of 16. And there are 16 teams. And theoretically, or practically, we should be facing up to 8 different teams, one of 8. But because there are lots of other English teams in the round of 16, we actually can only be drawn against Barcelona, PSG, or Besiktas. So chances are it's going to be PSG, of course, but Barcelona actually is the most likely in terms of statistics. I think we have a 43% chance of drawing Barcelona, which is pretty high if you look at that. And then a 28% chance of drawing either Besiktas or PSG. That's a rough. I do like these 2 comments back to back. One says, why did Antonio have to gamble with the lineup? And followed straight up by, we need to rotate. Everybody looked tired. There you go. That sums it up for you right there. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you rotate and you don't perform, then we say, why did you gamble? Because certainly Conte didn't gamble today, but if we rotate, he starts Batshuayi and Kennedy and whoever else hasn't played ever. Musonda, who's finally back healthy and has a new contract. Ampadu instead of Bakayoko. Say he does that, and we lose. People are gonna slam him for it's why'd you gamble? So I need to take it seriously. And then he plays his first choice lineup basically like he did today, save for Moses. And then when he say we need to rotate, so to be a football manager. But I guess this is the job they signed up for. And as a manager or head coach, you're always judged by wins or losses. Even if you are Antonio Conte and you always say your number one job is to improve your players, you will always be judged by wins or losses. And today was a terrible loss, really. The third of the season, really, we've lost to Burnley, which is a weird game. I'm willing to forgive him for that because of that early red card there, and then just the team absolutely self-destructing for the first 45 minutes. But this loss to West Ham and the loss to Crystal Palace are 2 games where the players looked absolutely not up for it. The loss to City, we can probably pin on Conte. There were some strange decisions made in that game. The loss to Roma is it's one of those where it doesn't necessarily matter as much. Yeah, exactly. Neil's correct. It says, it's all very well saying rotate and play the youth. We're not the ones who will get fired. Do if he does. Do if he doesn't. I think it was Carlo Ancelotti who said that getting fired is part of the, or getting sacked, if you want to use the non-US terminology, is part of the job definition of being a football manager. So, I guess if you can avoid it for a couple of seasons, you're already well ahead of the game. Certainly, Conte has been in charge for 18 months, which is now, on average, longer than most of our permanent managers, non-interim managers have been in charge. So good for him. Good for him. It would be easy to write off this game, I think, if I I don't know. Maybe it won't. We wouldn't be. Never mind. I'm not so sure it'd be easy to write this game off one way or the other. The only way to write this off is to get back to winning ways, which we will have a chance to do right away on Tuesday. That's an 8 p.m. kickoff in Huddersfield, which is way up north, at least in terms of English distances or European distances. So that's not good. As necessarily another place Chelsea tend to struggle is away games up far north of the wall, where winter is strongest. Although, as I understand it, today was just about freezing in West Ham. I was there for the past week, if you've been following our adventures on the blog and on Twitter. And actually, I think we caught some pretty nice weather over the past week. It barely rained, and the highs were almost in the 50s. Wherein today, I think kickoff temperature was probably below 40. So Chelsea certainly played like they were frozen to pieces. We need to let Conte build his side. He still hasn't signed the players he wants. Yeah, it's I think kind of like the rotation thing, though. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, mostly because we let Mourinho build his side, and we see where that's kind of led us in terms of future prospects, and seeing players like De Bruyne and Lukaku and others, mostly those two, flourish away from us after Mourinho has famously written them both off. So it's okay to build for a coach, but by definition, a coach isn't going to be here that long. And as nice as it would be to give Conte a decade, I'm not even sure Conte himself wants that. He's not stayed at any club really that long. He stayed at Juventus for 3 years, and I'd be surprised if he stayed at Chelsea for that long, but maybe he will. So I think more pertinently, we need to get a new technical director. Emanalo's been hired at Monaco. Chelsea were briefly linked with the former Monaco technical director Luis Campos. Leonid Slutsky was fired at Hull, or left by mutual consent. I wouldn't be surprised if he was given the job. I have no idea what qualifications he has for building a side. I'd much rather give it to somebody with a scouting background like Emanalo, rather than a management background like Slutsky. But either way, that part of the club hierarchy needs to be solved. And, right now, Granovskaya is in charge of basically everything, and that's not necessarily a good situation. It's not that she, not in terms of her qualifications or ability, but that's just a lot of work to handle, and you need more people in leadership positions to bounce ideas off of, to kind of make it a committee. That's a word that hasn't gotten good play in England. Transfer committees and all that, but you need more ideas. You need to be able to not just have one person there running the club on his or her whim. Now that MLL has gone, who are we blaming now when we don't sign Messi or Ronaldo every week? Unfortunately, Messi signed his new contract, so there goes our grand plan to sign him in January. We're gonna blame Granovskaya, of course, or whoever comes in next. Slutsky, he should be an easy scapegoat, right? Maybe Emanalo. That's why Emanalo left, possibly. He was just tired of being the scapegoat. All right. I think I'm not so sure if this group therapy worked. I don't really feel any better, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We have a long weekend ahead of us. Yeah. Fortunately, I guess Chelsea will be back in action in just 3 days. Tuesday night or Tuesday midday, depending on your time zone, away to Huddersfield. Huddersfield are okay at home, but it's a game, once again, that you would expect Chelsea to win. At this point, I'm not so sure we should be expecting anything, so maybe that'll result in a better performance from the boys. So that's Huddersfield, Tuesday away. Then we are back at home on Saturday against Southampton. Then League Cup against Bournemouth. Then away to Everton on the day before Christmas Eve. And then Boxing Day at home against Brighton. So, and then we're into the holiday period. So this is not necessarily good preparation for it, but it is what it is. We have a couple days to lick our wounds and get back into it. There's no time to feel sorry for ourselves, which is a good thing and a bad thing. There's plenty more points to be won and get that top four, which definitely should be our aim for the rest of the season. You know, hopefully, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of declaring title race out, or you don't want to be like Spurs, but time to refocus and concentrate on what we can really accomplish this season. And having realistic expectations is certainly can only be a good thing. Can only be a good thing. All right, we're still blaming Emanuel. All right, works for me. Tuesday, on Monday, there's the Champions League round of 16 draw, so that's something to look forward to as well. And kind of cross your fingers that you hope we get Besiktas, although there's every chance we might lose to them too. So it's all good times and positive vibes over here on Facebook Live. And on that note, I think we're going to call it a day here. If you watched any part of this, hopefully it was better than the game itself, which may not be a very high bar to clear, but hey, it is where we are. We'll be back after the Huddersfield game at some point. I'm not sure if right after or maybe a little later, the following morning perhaps. Be sure to check out the website, follow us on Twitter, etc., etc. Thanks for watching, and see you on a better day. Bye-bye.